a Christian. You supposed to love God, I don't get it. And that's the problem. Most people hide behind religion. And when you speak your truth, most people don't want to listen. I talk about the pain.
Happy Thursday. What's up, everybody? You are tuned in to another week with Ivy the Code, and this is She Evolves. I am live here on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. So make sure you hit that subscribe button. Is Ivy Nicole, NICHOLE. Y'all don't forget that H. If that's too much, just go to ivynicole.com and you can follow me across all social media platforms. So today we are actually going to kind of like get into maybe a controversial, unorthodox type of conversation, if you will. We are going to actually hit on mental health and spirituality, the whole religious aspect behind mental health, what it looks like. Where is the balance? Is there a balance? Should there be a balance? Can you lean towards one side more than the other? What do we do? You know, like, do we pray or do we take meds, or can we do both? I want to know. So today, I am not the expert in this, so it is only right for me to bring in my girl Z from Lenore's Light.
Hi, everybody.
So for those that don't know you, just kind of, how we do. We got to get all of your business so people know who you are, how to follow you, all that good stuff.
Yeah, so first off, thank you for having me. I always love sharing this space with you. But my name is Zenobia, or Z, as she said, with Lenora's Light. All social media is Lenora's Light 313 or at Lenora's Light 313. Website for like scheduling and things like that, or appointments, is www.lenoraslight.org. The about me. So I am a licensed social worker. Yeah. Who has her private practice, but I'm also a spiritualist or spiritual worker. So like I do readings. A lot of times I am sent people who are leaders or trailblazers in their families or in their community, and I kind of help them or walk with them through that fog. I do want to say, like, I am not the expert, because when we talk about true spirituality, you, the individual, you are the true expert, right? Even when it comes to your mental health, because you are with yourself 24/7. Anyone that you cross paths with, whether it's a priestess, priest, spiritualist, doctor, social worker, nurse, like whatever, they are experts in their field, in their like focus, right? But when it comes to you and your life and your health, you know what you like, don't like, you know how you react to certain things. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you for that, Z. Sometimes I don't even know where to really start, because it's like, I think your practice is just so unique. In an awesome way. I want to add that, because when we do talk about spirituality, I remember when I first got into the game, it was religiously preoccupied, right? And that was typically a very common term that was thrown around.
Yeah.
Religiously preoccupied, right? Oh,
Yeah.
person not attending groups because he in the quiet room praying, right? Not
Yeah.
taking into consideration the culture behind, like, yo, it's 12 o'clock. I gotta pray. Like, I'm not abandoning group, but I have to honor God first.
Yeah.
But again, a lot of clinicians, doctors will, you're religiously preoccupied, bro. Unspecified psychosis, right? These are the labels that you're getting. I have to fast. Um,
Yes.
Schizophrenia, right? A lot of folks are diagnosed as being paranoid schizophrenia, delusional hallucinations, because they put God or whoever they may believe in over mental health and professionals. So
yeah, I was just jotting the notes because you were making some good points. So we actually met at a psychiatric facility that we work at together, demons away. So let me say this too. Not only do I work in both worlds, right? Or work to combine the different worlds, mind, body, and spirit, right? But I live it. I live it every day. So I see and hear in spirit. I have dreams, things like that. And it can be challenging for patients because there are patients that I have met that were telling the truth, right? And that's part of why I left the psychiatric facility, and I used to work in the emergency department, and there were people where psychiatrists would mock patients. They would mock them, right? Or the one that is well known for certain shots, right? Would tell patients that, oh, well, God says you have to take your medication and things like that, right? And then you got the patient that's allergic to it, all these different dynamics. But both can be true. Like a person can have like a schizoaffective disorder or a psychosis, even paranoia, but they can also be in tune with spirit. And they may be being guided by their spirit guides or spirit team to do certain things. Like I give, sometimes I'm guided to fast, and then sometimes they fuss at me for not eating. Well, when you're depressed or when you're anxious, you're not hungry oftentimes, or you overeat, right? So both can be true. Yeah.
Okay, so for the folks that's watching, let's break down the psychosis and schizoaffective.
Yeah, so psychosis, or as you mentioned, unspecified psychosis, is kind of like that. We'll do it this way. So DSM, right? Yeah. Oh, yeah, I don't have all the stickers. So I am not going to, just for other clinicians that may watch, I'm not going to try to, we have an hour together, and there's a lot that we usually end up unpacking together when I was on your show last time, right? So I'm not going to go word for word for each thing. But psychosis or schizophrenia, there's often some form of hallucinations, whether it's auditory, visual, sometimes people have tactile or feeling, and other things too. With the paranoia, that's where a lot of people, especially in the Black community, they are afraid of those who have different variations of schizoaffective or schizophrenic disorders because they assume that they are dangerous when many times they're actually not dangerous, when they're taking care of themselves and things like that. But the paranoia or the voices will tell them that they are in danger. And just because you have voices that are threatening you or telling you you're in danger, it doesn't mean you're schizophrenic either. I have encountered many different things, including like cousin dropped off a couch. Mind you, I was already told that to watch out, like check on her, right? I had dreams and visions about her, had family check on her, and there was actually something wasn't right. She actually did need support, right? And then I took a couch from her. Well, that night I didn't do my cleansing and protection work, and it doesn't always have to be these fancy spells or rituals, but at least like clearing it, praying over it, holy water, holy oil, whatever. I did none of that. And my dog wouldn't get on the couch, and what happens in the scary movies, right? When the animals don't want to be around. Well, I just assumed it was Angel having an attitude because she's sassy about me getting rid of her favorite couch. Well, I woke up in the middle of the night to something choking me, right? So just because you feel you are in danger or something's telling you you're in danger, it doesn't mean you're schizophrenic, but also too, it doesn't necessarily mean there's actually a demon. It might just be a chemical imbalance.
Okay. So I want to kind of like shift gears a little bit, right? Because we talked a little bit about the clinical piece, right? Now let's go into the religious leaders, right? When you have someone coming into the church, And as you and I are professionals, so we can see like, okay, this is a mental health issue, this is a mental illness, this is something that needs to be addressed professionally, right? But you have a lot of these church folks, going around, oh no, we just gonna pray the demons out, we just gonna pray that you just get right with God, and all of that stuff, where, like you just said, sometimes it is a chemical imbalance, and you may need to be treated with medication and or therapy or one or the other to actually help you get unstuck. Because a lot of I know one psychological disorder that's very that don't get diagnosed often is adjustment disorder.
Yes.
Right. So when I look at adjustment disorder, I think about the whole aspect of you're stuck, right? You're stuck in a place and you don't know how to readjust to a new way of living, a new way of life. Like now, we're trying to come out of this pandemic, right? So now people are like, they're confused. We've been on lockdown for 2 years. But in the beginning of the pandemic, people had to kind of readjust. Now you can't go and get your nails done, you can't go to the grocery store, you can't go to the mall, you can't go to church, you can't go to school, you can't go to work, you can't do anything but chill. So it brought up a lot of anxiety, depression, adjustment disorder. I wouldn't necessarily say you're psychotic, schizoaffective, or anything like that. But again, you have a lot of these religious folks, these pastors, oh, we just gonna lay hands on you and we just gonna pray that everything be okay. No, sometimes you need medication.
Or like you said, at least some form of professional mental health help. Now there's so many options like EMDR, I believe I'm saying it right, but EMDR and different things, but some form of professional mental health help. Yeah.
Okay. So what is like your take on that? Like as a clinician, is it like offensive? Like you kind of throwing shade at what I do?
So one of the biggest things you learn on your spiritual journey is not to take things personal, So on the mental health end, there's something called projection or transference, where a person is looking at you or talking to you, but they're really seeing issues within themselves, right? And in the spiritual realm, people are often mirrors or karmic relationships where they are meant to kind of highlight things that you need to deal with, right? So when you have spiritual leaders that don't at least encourage or mention some form of mental health, it does make me nervous. It makes me cringe because a person can be a prophet or a prophetess, right? They can have gifts like discernment or, any of the gifts of the Holy Spirit, right? But if they are going through and for people watching, Google Cara June, Dark Night of the Soul, Cara June, Dark Night of the Soul, right? So they can be going through like their Dark Night of the Soul or ego death, or like you mentioned, just a trigger, something triggered it, right? With COVID came a whole domino effect, aside from like people dying, people having trouble burying their loved ones, which is a spiritual component, right? And that's a mental component, because without being able to give your loved one a proper home going, whatever religious or spiritual path you're a part of, that can be traumatic. That can complicate the grieving process, right? And so you need to know your scope of practice. So by me being a LMSW, I have to abide by the NASW Code of Ethics, right? And so not every, but many professionals have some form of code or ethics or guidelines. And it's so important. Sometimes you just have to admit that your way isn't the only way and a person needs help. Because you could pray it away, but how long do we watch this person lose weight from not eating? How long does this person stay cooped up in their room? How long, I've heard people get shamed for wanting to unalive themselves. People who experience significant traumas like sexual assault, right? they get dismissed or turned away by the church or the spiritual community, just in general. And so you need someone that is meant to be as unbiased as possible. All clinicians have bias. That's one of the things that we learn in our program, right? But you want someone that's a neutral party that you can talk to in private. And it's important.
Yeah, it's almost like you need both, right?
Mm-hmm.
You need the spiritual relationship. You do need a solid church home that's not going to just kind of dismiss you and throw you out the church if you tripping, right? I'm gonna say if you tripping, you get put out the church.
Yeah.
And you know what? And I'm gonna be transparent because I don't care. Like I left the church because of the lack of transparency. The lack of if it ain't righteous, then it doesn't fit into like what's going on like in the real world. It was almost like the blinders was on. And it hurt me to my heart, and I'm just like, you're trying to build a relationship with God and you're trying, but you see all of the BS that's going on in the world. But it's just like, all right, what are we as children of God going to do about this situation? Or like the pastor or the leadership, what are you going to do? Because we can't always just kind of fall back and chill and say we just gonna pray about it. Like I do go to a church now. Shout out to Pastor Barry Randolph at Church of the Messiah, who will boldly tell you, you need to go get help and then come back to me and then we can pray. You need to go get professional help because that ain't my scope. But to be like open and transparent, to actually accept the fact that mental illness really do exist. It's not demons. Yes, you do pray, but you also seek help. You seek professional help too.
Yeah.
I remember one time he said, you better pray that God send you a good doctor.
That's it. Yeah. Yeah, that's true. Like you, it was something you said. That's what I was taking notes on. Sorry. But you mentioned like that needing both, right? Sometimes people are so afraid of like the mental health system, right? And some of that is ingrained in us. Like we're afraid of just the medical system, especially the Western medical system, because of all the things that's been done to us, especially people of color, right? How much have we suffered at the hands of men in white lab coats? And so there's an inherent fear there. But I'm glad that your pastor encourages people. You do need both sometimes. You do. And we don't tell people, some people do, but like we're just going to say in a overall, we don't tell people with high blood pressure, don't go to the doctor, don't take your high blood pressure meds, right? We don't tell people with cancer, don't go to the doctor, don't get chemo, right? Somebody break their leg. We're not saying, you're okay, just pray the broken leg away. Like we don't do that. So why do we do that with the mind that is the organ that controls literally our entire body?
Oh my God. Listen, Z, you just hit on something, right? And I felt like you was in my brain for a few minutes. Like you always in my head, right? Because I was just thinking about the whole aspect of, the stigma around mental health in general, especially in the Black community, because it's almost like, okay, every family got the crazy uncle, the crazy the auntie, the crazy cousin, the cousin that's in and out of jail, how like you see like the TikToks or whatever, like, okay, you got the bougie auntie, the, which auntie are you and stuff like that. But when you actually like really dive deep into that, that's not what considered normal behavior. It's just like, okay, auntie might be a little bipolar. Auntie just ain't, the lit auntie in the family. It might be something going on. Why auntie always turned up all the time? You know, she ain't always the life of the party. Like, for real, she ain't really wake up like this. So it's almost as if like it's often so stigmatized to where it has become the norm in society. Like, oh, okay, which auntie are you? Which cousin are you? The crazy uncle, the crazy auntie, the cousin that just got out of jail, you know. And this is how the black family is looked at, not considering, you know, the schizophrenia, you know, the mental illness, the psychosis, the personality disorder. You know, personality disorder is something that we don't often talk about a lot either, you know, because it's like it's not dangerous, but you just like, oh, you're an asshole, right? But no, that's a personality disorder. And sometimes we have to actually get to the root cause and the trauma and, you know, why a person do what they say, do what they do. And, you know, oftentimes in a black home, hey, what goes on in this house stays in this house. It better not leave this house. So we don't talk about these issues.
No, and I love that you say that. So from 2016, well, as an intern from 2015 and 2016, and then as a paid staff from 2016 till January this year, I worked for Sasha Center, and I love the staff over there. Yeah, and I'm so grateful for their training, because you're right. What's one of the biggest things that comes with that is secrets make you sick. Secrets make you sick. That's why I kind of take my time with hard diagnosis, because high-headed auntie may have been raped 2 or 3 times, right? And then she was raped by the crazy uncle who has addiction issues, and everybody invalidated that auntie. So she's holding on to so much stuff. She's about to explode or explodes at every little trigger, right? And then over time, you realize once she gets some of that crap up out of her, once it realizes it's not her fault, once someone validates her experiences, once she learns how to validate her emotions and actually navigate her emotions in an intelligent way, because there is a such thing as emotional intelligence, right? As she learns how to navigate her world and has some way of holding her perpetrator accountable, which doesn't always have to be jail, because in our community, how many people really want to call the police, especially with everything happening now, right? And for those that haven't read that book, Love with Accountability is a good book. But you may realize she's not as high-headed as we think, right? After a couple months to a year, she might be a little leveled out. Now, there might be one version of this auntie that need medications while she goes through therapy or some form of trauma-informed care. And then there's another version that may require medications like for the rest of her life. And then there's another version that may not even need medications, right? But it's that fear of the mental health system, and like you said, that neurobiology of trauma, right? Or trauma that's passed down generationally. And then you have people who experience their own stuff and have no support. They need that help, without being judged or criticized.
Yeah, they need the help. And what do most people do before they seek help? They go to church. Right? They try to seek something or something higher than them.
Yeah.
Right? That's their goal. They're thinking like, okay, if I go to church, God is going to cure me. God is going to free me. But Lord forbid, you know, if you step outside the religious box while in church, then what happens? Then you're re-traumatized. Then everything that happened to you, it resurfaces.
And church is sometimes a trigger for some people, because at many churches, people are so comfortable, they're quick to touch someone's shoulder or someone's hand or You know, some churches, like I was raised Lutheran, although we visited my aunt's Baptist church. And so sometimes they would use the big cup for communion. So then you got someone like pouring or holding the cup up to your mouth. Like all of these things can be triggered to the average person that's experienced some form of trauma too. Mm-hmm. Uh-oh. I think you froze, my dear. I'm gonna give it like 1 minute, y'all. I think you froze. Well, obviously you froze, but like. Okay. Just because it's live, and I don't know if I am still seen or heard, or if it's disconnected, I'm just gonna keep talking. So, one thing I want everyone to know, like, it's nothing wrong with living your truth and needing both, right? So we're gonna wait for her to hop back in, but like I argue, and in grad school, my research papers were on the importance of having some form of faith, no matter what you call God, he, she, and they. But having faith in something to help you is so important, and it actually makes a huge difference in outcomes, not just with mental health, but with physical health challenges. And so both are important. And there's actually more of a triad or a triangle, right, where it's mind, body, and spirit. Where you have to take care of your mind, but you also have to take care of your body, and you also have to take care of your soul or spirit, right? That's the biggest thing with being like a whole or a complete person. You don't need anyone to complete you. And if you are watching this, because I don't know if it's still live or not, you're not broken. You may feel broken. I have prayed in a meditation, visualized myself handing God my heart, right? And it was in 1,000 pieces. And I mean, boohoo, ugly cry, right? But you're not broken. People are not broken. Sometimes things try to break us down or make you feel broken, but you're not broken. But I just wanted to make sure to say that because a lot of people aren't taught, if you don't sleep for days in a row, that can trigger psychosis. So it doesn't necessarily mean that you have a lifelong or long-standing disorder. Sometimes just something as simple as not getting sleep can trigger it. Sometimes people suffer from addiction because they're self-medicating, and that self-medicating can come from either experiencing trauma or setbacks or grief, right? That self-medicating can also come from a place of being spiritually in tune or spiritually gifted and trying to quiet it or silence it. That self-medication or medicating can also come from like a genetically passed down mental health disorder. And so sometimes we're not sure what the actual problem is until a person has left substances alone for a while. Sometimes a person has to take a break from certain substances to really see their true personality because they've been 2 or 3 different people their whole life. When you experience trauma, it's about learning how to integrate that trauma into who you are or who you want to be, right? So your trauma doesn't have to define you. I'm not saying that you walk around with your trauma as like a badge of honor, but you also take time and you do your best to live a new life, right? Or use it to become the person that you really want to be, instead of instead of letting it be like an anchor or a ball and chain keeping you stuck or in a prison. So I love y'all. I'm so honored and grateful to be here. I don't want to just keep rambling, so I'm going to pause for a minute. I'm going to check in on Ivy, and then I'll be back. All right, so we are in the midst of retrograde. Let us not forget that. So Techie is going to be tricky, right? So I did talk to her. She is on the way. She's having some technical issues. The computer signed her out. But I just, I really wish I could see, like, if anybody had questions or anything. Over here in the comments, it's not showing any comments. Yeah. So, yeah. Let's talk about for those that still want to try to work things out independently before reaching out for help. And I actually got 29% on my battery. But for those that are interested in trying to work some things out, here are some coping skills or some takeaways, right? So one thing, if you have dreams that you feel like they are nightmares or they are scary, try really hard to write the dreams down without judging them. Sometimes they look scary, but they're not necessarily dangerous. Sometimes they are warnings, right? Sometimes it's repressed stuff that needs to be dealt with on the mental health end. On a spiritual end, sometimes it's someone or something trying to connect with you, or it may mean something. Like I've had dreams about a huge brown bear. Oh, her laptop shut down. Okay, she's working it out. I've had dreams about a huge brown bear chasing me. And so whenever I see a bear chasing me in my dream, I know that that's emotions. Like something's either going to trigger a big emotion or there's a big emotion that I need to deal with that I'm not dealing with. Because even as a therapist and an Aquarius, right? Sometimes I have trouble acknowledging or expressing my emotions, right? And so we all have things to work on. And that's another thing too. Please, like something that's a coping skill, but it's a life skill, mind, body, and spirit, right? It's so important to practice not judging yourself or beating up on yourself. You can hold yourself accountable in a loving way. If you have dreams about babies, sometimes they're either giving birth to something or it's time to do something creative, or it's time to nurture yourself. Like there's a part of self that you're not nurturing. Different things like that. So try really hard not to judge the dream. Just write it out. And I always like say a prayer of gratitude or thanks at the, sorry, somebody popped up. I always, or try to, right? Say thank you for understanding, or thank you for clarity, or I'll sit with certain things that stand out. If you forget, that's fine. If not, good, right? Another thing too, some people that have insomnia or anxiety, maybe even depression too, but some people who are kind of like overthinkers or big worriers, their mind will just spiral as soon as the moon comes up or at night. You may not have noticed that correlation, but in the physical side of things, nighttime, the world is usually calmer. You don't have as many distractions, right? Which affects the mind, because now the mind is running wild with everything that's been suppressed. And then on the spiritual end, sometimes they are downloads. Sometimes they could be attacks, I heard, like demonic attacks. Or your guides guiding you, because that's the quietest time, but it's also a very spiritually active time. So another coping skill that you can use if you want to try to work things out before seeking professional help, whether it's spiritually or in a mental health way, when your thoughts are what we call racing thoughts, or if your thoughts are looping, those rabbit hole moments, right? Write it down and don't judge it. It takes practice, but write the thoughts down and don't judge it. If you write the thoughts down, it could be a paragraph, it could be a picture, it can be bullet points, whatever. Sometimes you'll notice that some of it actually makes more sense than you realize, or you've been given a solution to a problem, things like that, right? And then other times it may just be stuff that needs to be dealt with emotionally. But then after that, give yourself permission to walk away, whatever that looks like for you, whoever you pray to. Give yourself permission to walk away So that way you can like get rest, right? So many people feel like they're helpless or hopeless, or they have no option, but you do have options. Now, just because you've tried 1 or 2 things and it didn't work, it doesn't mean that the other 2 or 3 things won't work. And it's okay. Like, your feelings are valid, and it's okay to reach out for support. It's okay to get help. You may not always find someone that is what you need. Mental health professionals are no different than any other form of customer service, right? Just like with spiritual leaders, you may be a part of different religious or spiritual paths, and your leader is not really supporting you, then find a new one. You don't have to stay. You have to give yourself permission to leave. She's texting. Just like with mental health, your psychiatrist, your social worker, your counselor, your psychologist, marriage family therapist. Okay, it says I could log out. She said I could log out. Okay. But yeah, your spiritual leader, just like your mental health provider, you can choose, you can make choices. You can seek someone else. So again, have a beautiful night. Look up the 5 senses exercise, change it to what you need. But yeah, have a great day, and you are so important and valid. You are enough, and you deserve all the love and joy and happiness in the world.